You want me up here? I'm happy to sit over there.
It's May 2nd, and this is the meeting of the Town Dudley FAA, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so you guys should have the minutes from the meeting of October 26th in front of you. If you get a chance to take a look at them. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary there. Didn't notice any changes or anything needs to be made. All right, so
Tried to make.
and then let's make a motion to accept these minutes.
Motion to accept the minutes as written for October 26, 2017 FAA meeting.
You second it? All right, Ann seconds it. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we will open up the public hearing for the fiscal 19 spring warrant. You want to start? We'll just go over the numbers here.
Sure thing.
If anybody wants to get up and speak when we hit that particular article. Article 1, 1, 2, and 3 is just unpaid bills.
Right.
Number 3. Article 4 is the supplemental budget. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to go over the rest of the articles first?
I can go through them one at a time. This is just to pay for several anticipated shortfalls in the budget.
Yep.
And in hindsight, this article may not even be necessary because there are monies available in the treasurer's budget. These are all accounts that are in the treasurer's line item. And they can do an internal transfer. We don't need this article, but there's some shortfalls. You see what they are, and you see the dollar amounts that are shown here.
5,000 for postage. So this is just a transfer then?
Yeah, this is current year budget transfers.
Okay. Any questions on Article 4 at all? All right. Article 5, Economic Development Committee.
It's money that the Economic Development Committee was going to do a brochure,
Yeah.
and the town had contributed or appropriated $2,500 for the brochure. Committee's no longer doing that, so the committee would like the monies to come back to the general fund, and this is the way to do it.
Okay, so there's a transfer back from them,
Correct.
back into
to
the general fund?
Correct.
Is there any reason why they didn't want to do that brochure?
I can't speak for them.
Nobody, does anybody even pick up brochures anymore?
Maybe that's part of
It's
the
all
problem.
online,
Yeah.
everything's online now, so.
The Mass Collectors Treasurers Association still has a trifold brochure. I'm sure if you found somebody's desk from 1986, it's probably the same font and everything else like that. And the thought is, it's the reminder. Too many emails come out, it's too easy to delete things. You throw it in that drawer that collects all the garbage, and the second somebody comes off, 2 people are fighting for the spot because it's print. Nothing else is print. Also, there are places like, call it the city of Worcester, there's probably a line of salesmen every day who want that business. But you look to the smaller to mid-sized towns, what are you going to do? You have that piece of paper, and it's sent to all 351 cities and towns, school districts, water districts, everything else like that. Best mass marketing on the planet. So I'm there with you. I think it's antiquated, but you got to know your audience.
Yeah. I mean, if you get something targeted like that brochure for you, that's a
Right.
targeted market, but this is kind of, welcome to Dudley type.
You would think the people that put in the Rite Aid or something like that didn't pick up something. Oh, look, it's salmon colored. Let's see what it says. You know, they probably sought us out. But.
All right. Then we have the Article 6 is the fiscal 19 budget.
Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to?
We can, if you want to do that last, we can do that last.
That'd be fine.
We can
That-
jump to Article 7.
So Article 7 is, received a positive recommendation from the Capital Improvement Committee. It is $450,000 for costs associated with some work to this building, replacement of the roof, which has failed and is leaking badly, and the cooling system tower, which sits out behind the building outside of Mr. Carmignani's office out in the patio out there. Both of those items have reached the end of their useful life, and I've given and provided the committee with a copy of estimates that we received to justify it. They can no longer be repaired. We need to move forward in preserving the town's asset and spend money to make the necessary repairs and work that needs to be done.
Any questions on that?
And you have copies of the reports if you wish to read through them, and
so-
estimates.
I don't know if you were here, I think you guys were both here when we had the capital improvement meeting. Greg had gone over, I have copies of both for the roof, estimate for the roof and for the.
I think everyone has one. Everyone should have one.
Looks like they
Yeah.
have them
Yeah.
in here.
So, basically, the roof is leaking, ready to fall apart, and we got no air conditioning,
Flat roof in the
Except
way.
in this building, except in this room.
except for this room here, so.
Glad we're meeting here.
Yeah. Gonna have to move everybody's out, we can get cubicles.
Right.
but everything-
Exactly.
The same on those window air conditioners. So basically, on the safe side, 450 would be, you know, there's obviously new bids that are gonna come in, and there's different leeway in there, so.
Yeah, so we have to hire, the roof, is $275,000, plus the cost of an architect, plus a 10% contingency factor, brings us to about $330,000 in that neighborhood. The cooling tower is $103,000, and then there's an amount in there for temporary cooling, as I mentioned to the capital committee. I think there's probably a more reasonable way of providing temporary cooling to the building than bringing in something on a flatbed truck for 8 weeks and having it cost us $38,000. But nevertheless, we want to put that in as our budget because it represents the worst case.
Two questions. Will we receive other, is this going out to bid, or has
So
it
the
already
roof-
gone out to bid and we're waiting for additional?
No, has not. So the roof, both items have to be put out to bid. The roof requires an architect.
Right.
So the first step is, after we get money appropriated, is we have to hire an architect. They'll do a plan and specification. We'll get it out to bid this summer or early fall, and the work will commence thereafter.
So the bids go off the architectural drawing?
Correct. And then the cooling system, we will utilize someone from the state bid list that's familiar with it, that we will not need to put that out to bid. So that's, time is of the essence in getting that work done.
Sure.
So we'll use someone on the state bid list that we're familiar with and we have a relationship with already. They've given us an estimate, and the intent is to utilize their services to replace the cooling tower.
Does one coincide with the other in regard to, are we craning any equipment onto the roof for
No.
the new
So
system?
fortunately, the tower sits outside, down on the ground, but part of the problem is the tower sits on the ground. I think I mentioned before to the committee, when you have something like that, there's a lot of moisture with it. Typically, the moisture wicks out and evaporates. But when the thing sits on the ground, that moisture doesn't wick away from the equipment as you would like, and that caused a lot of internal corrosion and caused that cooling equipment ultimately to fail. So I think I used the word poor design.
Yeah, yeah. And what's the age of the current system, do you know?
So both 2003, 2004.
It's a quick life.
So the 450 basically represents the high end, you
Yeah.
think?
Just to cover us enough to,
Mm-hmm.
It does.
So it could come in a lot less than that, but that covers us.
I just didn't see in the roof quote whether or not they're removing the current rubber membrane
Yeah,
that's
so
there.
it's gonna come off.
So they'll remove that completely and then a new one.
It will.
That's a big job.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Right, any questions on Article 7? Article 8 is the fire gear. I don't know if, Chief, you want to say anything again, or? No? Okay.
I suggest we defer to the fall town meeting.
All right.
We just haven't got the money. And that's the one thing, when we go over the budget, I'll kind of run through the revenue side. It's just,
Chief, this is the last of the 10, this is the
No,
final.
this is year 3 or 4.
Next year, so you need 20 sets is basically what you're looking for. So that's impossible to defer. The Article 9, fund the LED conversion.
Yep, so, let me just hand something out. 2, 3. Rich, you might need this too.
Thank you.
Pass it down, Rich. Michelle? Oops. So this is to replace all of our high-pressure sodium lights, the orange lights that you see in town, 613 lights that are owned by the town, with LED fixtures. And so the total cost of that retrofit is about $200,000. We have an estimate. We have contracted with MAPC. MAPC is the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, and they put together a group procurement. So we have to go through and inventory the lights. We have to establish where they are, what our costs are. So the total project cost is estimated to be $190,000, and we will be eligible for grants and utility incentives totaling $71,000. And I'm looking for it because I don't have the exact number. Let's see. Yeah, $71,000. So we would be eligible for second. Utility incentive from National Grid of $30,165, and a grant from the MAPC in the amount of $41,352, totaling a little bit over $71,000. So then our net cost, less the grants, becomes $118,557, and the payback on this is 4.6 years. So that's the reason why we want to do it, is because we would have a payback on these lights of upwards of 20 years. And we're spending considerable time and effort, and the public is aggravated because the lights that are there right now don't work. There's a high failure rate, they're old, and we can't find anyone to fix them. There's just not a lot of people out there that want to fix old utility lights. So we would retrofit all of our lights throughout the entire community. We would borrow the full amount, and we would use the annual savings to pay off our bonds. So the net cost to the town is zero. So what we will continue to do is we'll continue to fund our utility budgets as we do today. And then what we will do in the fall, we will true up those budgets and transfer an amount into the debt service budget. And that will cover our first debt payment, and we'll continue to do that until the debt is completely paid off. So I think it's a good idea. It's a safety idea, and the time is right for us to do it with all of these utility incentives and MAPC incentives. So we have a project schedule, and we have, to this point, completed our streetlight audit. So that is done, and that's what's identified all of our lights. We need to secure our approval for municipal project funding by the end of May. And then beginning in July, MAPC will begin soliciting for a group procurement. So there will be other communities besides Dudley that will be in on this. And then in August, a vendor will be selected for replacement of equipment. We will then sign a contract with the vendor, and we anticipate that the retrofit will be complete by November 1st. So this is a pretty quick project once we get the funding. And the result is that all of the lights in the town get changed out, and we have a 4.5-year payback. We pay back all of our costs. We have a little to low maintenance going forward, and we save money. So it's really no reason why we shouldn't be doing this. And other towns have done it. If you drive through, you'll notice towns that have the LED retrofit. I know Webster's looking at it, and there are a number of other towns that are looking at it. I drive home every day through a bunch of towns. Sutton has it. Well, they don't have many streetlights, but the lights they have are the LED ones, and it's much better quality lighting for anyone that questions it. It's a much more focused, brighter, whiter light than the other stuff that's there. Any questions?
Is there any Any requirement to do this?
No, we're not being forced to.
We're not being forced? I remember back a few years ago, when we became a green community, we got grants to do this, change the lighting over. Do you remember what happened to that money?
Yeah, so we used it to do some work to this building. So we changed out the VFDs. We changed our drives to VFDs. We put in an energy monitoring system in this building. We changed some of the lights in the parking lot here. We did a retrofit of all of the lighting in the highway department. So we've been chipping away in terms of work that we've done. This, for whatever reason, was not a cost that they were willing to fund through the grant. I think because of the fact it's too expensive, but I think it's a good idea. And I think the fact that it's got a 4.5-year payback is all the reason why we should do this.
There isn't any out-of-pocket expense to the town?
The only out-of-pocket, we do have some out-of-pocket expense. So the cost of doing the audit is an out-of-pocket expense. So the company that we contracted with sent out 2 people who were out here, there, and everywhere. I think it was probably back in March when we hit with all these storms. And they locate each light and determine that it's the size of it, whether it's working or not working. So there was some cost to the town as a result of that. But beyond that, there was no other additional cost to the town.
Are we considering doing this building as well in regard to LED conversion?
We did the parking lot, and in terms of the interior of the building, we'll look at it and see whether it's something we could pay for through the grant program. Because there still is some grant money that hasn't been spent.
I'm not sure how it works in the public or private sector, but I just went through this for the bakery, and there isn't any cost out of pocket for it. They convert all of the current light fixtures over, and the savings that you have through your utility bill goes to them for the first 2 years.
It's pretty neat.
So that option does exist, and as long as National Grid approves it, they come in and convert the entire building. And
We'll look into it.
yeah, I have a contact if you need it. I
That'd be
don't
great.
know how it works with the town, but going back to the street light, it's a point of contention for me, only because for 2.5 years, the light outside of my house has been out. And I've made several calls, but it's just one of those things but we have a lot of young kids in the neighborhood. It's a dangerous corner. They're walking there, people are walking their dogs, the town is at risk. Whatever we need to do to get light to the streets, I'm in full support of.
Any other questions?
No, I think it's a great idea, too. I think the cost of electricity just keeps rising and rising, so I think it's a good idea, and the time is right.
Moving on, Article 10. This is a transfer. Mr. Camignani, do you wanna, this is yours? Kinda, I guess I'm gonna say, in plain English, maybe you can kinda give us the bottom line number on the ambulance?
Right. Ambulance was destroyed this year. The insurance proceeds were $209,000 plus. We held that in a receipts reserved account. Just kind of held it there. In June, we need to pay off all of what was due on the old ambulance to the tune of $106,200, interest of $1323.81. That left $101,477 that we put into the capital account for the new ambulance we purchased. Some money for the debt payment of the old ambulance is in the 2018 treasurer's budget. We're going to be able to make part of the payment for that ambulance this year, because we borrowed the money on a time other than the fiscal year end, so we only borrowed it for the 6 months. So we're paying off the old one and making a payment on the new one. So we're good.
What's that leave us for a balance?
You're making me do the math. We're paying off, it would be $55,000 off the 220. So it would be the 1/4 payment.
All right, any questions for Rich on this one? Okay. Sewer department?
So I talked to Mr. Mann, who indicates that the town is required by Mass DEP to perform An infiltration inflow analysis. So this is the cost to contract with engineering firm to complete that work in its entirety, and it would be funded through sewer retained earnings.
How long is that good for?
That's a good question. I don't wanna give, there's a timeframe on it that expires, and we wish to stay ahead of the curve so that we don't come under any orders. But I don't know, Mike, off the top of my head.
Article 12 is a sewer department.
So this is money going back into sewer retained earnings because they've completed a project. So Article 12 and Article 13, other than the projects both projects have been completed, there's a balance that remains in each account, and the intent is to have that go back to the retained earnings account.
These are just transfers, all right? And the water department's got something here, transfer funds?
Same thing.
Same
So
thing,
it's
okay.
the same thing where the project has been completed and money will be going back. 14 is the reval services. Typically, we fund that at fall town meeting. 15 is dam hazard breach. We're under orders from the Office of Dam Safety to address deficiencies in dams throughout the community. So we need to spend money to do all of these engineering analyses. Frankly, there's no end to this.
It's a damn pain in the butt.
There's no end.
Didn't we fund that at
We do,
fall?
we do. But we own 9 dams
Yeah.
that were granted and accepted by the town at some point. And each of those dams is in different conditions, is under different orders. The one that you'll recall is Merino Pond,
Yeah.
where they had to do an analysis of the lower dam, which is down by the mill. So that has to be done, but they're all on different schedules, and we receive letters from the state that telling us we have to do certain things. That's what these things go on. And Carpenter Pond Dam is considered a high-risk dam because apparently there's residential property downstream. It's right on the New Boston Road down near the state line. For those who don't know.
Any questions on the dam article?
No.
Article 16, fire department, that's first responder gear for 11,396. I think, Chief, you said you were gonna push that to fall? Okay. Town accountant, compensated absent trust. Does that have anything to do with us?
Yeah,
How much?
it's, the amount is to be determined, and it's unclear whether we'll have money to be able to do this right now. But what we want to do is, as employees leave service, there are certain buyouts that apply, and we best be prepared to pay for those buyouts. So the intent of this would be to set up a trust account and have that trust funded with money that's reserved to pay for end-of-career buybacks that may occur with different employees. I think it's a wise and a prudent thing to do. Whether we have money to fund it remains to be seen, but we still have these obligations that we have to pay no matter what. And there'll be a lot of retirements coming up.
So what do, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Does this tie into is it OPEB, am I saying that correctly? Other post-employment benefits that we've talked about for a couple cycles?
Yes and no. What this is Michelle raises her hand and said, "It's been nice seeing you." And we need to buy out the accrued vacation time, all of those benefits. Ideally, it's at retirement, and somebody gives you 6 months lead time that says, yes, and here we go. And you can do the quick calculation. Long-term employee, 5 weeks of vacation at their current salary, plus whatever sick time buyback is due to them. Right now, I want to say there's under $5,000 in the account. We have the account set up. It's an interest-bearing account, but a lot of promises were made. Reasonably, you'd only have 1 or 2 people retiring a year.
The rocking chair or wish watch would be
Yeah.
acceptable?
You guys aren't saving for my watch anytime soon, so. yeah.
Nice watch.
Nice watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Depends on how nice the
Right.
board is.
If I could, Rich, what would be your recommended balance in that account for any cycle year?
oh, listen, I'd put more money in the stabilization before I put it in the compensated absence. But at the end of the day, the way the contracts are written, you've got a highway superintendent who's leaving,
39 years, huh?
39 years, so he's more than 2 weeks vacation. So real quickly, you know, what he makes per week, he's gonna have a couple of weeks of vacation, he's gonna have a couple of weeks of sick time, or whatever the contract is gonna be, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 could cover one employee. And if I could say so, in the next 5 years, 10 or 15 people would be saying goodbye. So,
You're looking at $100,000 here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
If that money is not in that account or available.
You owe it.
You owe it.
You
So you
can't
pay it.
shake Mike's
So how do
hand
you
very
pay it?
firmly and say, sorry, we
Right,
can't pay you.
Right.
You
Checks
pay,
in the mail.
you pay it from the departmental budget. And
Okay.
then you either defer hiring of the new person, you make an adjustment from the
Right. And,
Understood.
and just think of what that's gonna cause if, we'll use the example of Michelle, and she's not going anywhere anytime soon.
We
But if
hope.
you've got 5 or 6 weeks' worth of time to use, all of a sudden, September and half of October, Michelle is gone. And then what happens? There's this mountain of paperwork, and nothing gets filed on time. So continuity of service, I'm sure, has a dollar amount that you could put on that as well. Plus reasonably, everybody's leaving on good terms, so you'd have 6-month lead time to say, at the next town meeting, fall town meeting, you'd sort of have a general idea. 10 or 20 is not a bad,
That's our goal,
not a bad number.
fall town meeting.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Stabilization fund.
We put it on, I put it on, but the reality is it'll be funded at the fall town meeting when we have available funds. But I still like the idea that we put it on
So is 17 gonna be something similar to, try to fund in the fall, or?
there. I'm not sure. Money is pretty tight when we go through the budget.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the school override affects the schools, it doesn't affect the town.
Right.
So we're balanced on the town budget to the dollar. If we are to discover, and we have holes that we're trying to fill in this year's budget, shortfalls, which you'll address also, I don't see that there's a lot of money that's available. Just don't.
Have any idea what free cash might be?
No, not yet.
All right, Article 19, town clerk.
It's acceptance of a statute.
So, I would imagine we defer to town clerk on this one,
Yep.
right? Board of Selectmen, Article 20, declare a disposition of property.
So for us to sell non-tax title property, we need a vote at town meeting. And the intent of this, the landowner has expressed a interest in purchasing property, and a vote of town meeting needs to take place to authorize that, and this is the step that's necessary to sell that property.
Center Road. I don't know much about that. Do you want to defer that to? I mean, we're not making motions tonight, are we? We have a joint meeting.
We have a meeting coming up.
Yeah. All right.
The selectmen will be voting everything on Monday.
Right, so we'll have a joint meeting with them and go through these articles with them. Article 21, treasurer collector. Insurance premium payable by surviving spouse. So,
It's housekeeping.
housekeeping.
At the end of the day, we did a cursory compliance audit, and we needed to accept this statute to be in compliance. It is surviving spouse. Right now, we cover them, but there is nothing that says we cover them, so.
Okay. Any questions on that? Article 22, Economic Development, establish a recreation commission. Because there's 7 members. I don't think that really has much to do with us unless there's any money involved, right?
Right, 23 is the same.
Same economic, agricultural, we're gonna have tons of commissions, huh? Good for John. We can barely get enough people on our regular boards now. On what commission? Wow. Article 24 is the planning board. What's this one about?
That's zoning bylaw.
Seems like every warrant article, we got something on the solar panels. Can we just figure this all out in one shot?
Is that what this is speaking to?
Yeah.
Is the solar panel?
Jeez. I don't know what they're doing here.
Looks like they're just... Looks to me like they're amending the zoning map.
Yes, so they want to extend it to this parcel. So this parcel will be covered in the solar overlay district.
Is this a spot zone? Is that what they're doing?
Well, I think is the fact that it's part of an overlay district,
Yeah.
I don't think spot zoning applies.
Okay.
But I'm not a lawyer, and council has reviewed this and not raised any objections.
All right, I guess we'll have to, what you guys want to do with this, defer it?
I think we'd have to, yeah.
Okay. Another Article 25, we got another zoning, amend of the zoning bylaws, density restriction.
Well, the planning board has to have a public hearing on these,
Right.
so there'll be a public hearing that'll be publicized, and anyone that wishes to
Okay,
come in will
so-
have an opportunity to be
This one. Article 26, marijuana,
heard. Marijuana,
marijuana.
you want to raise the tax from 2% to 3%, because when the article was originally adopted a year ago, the tax was 2%, and then it worked its way through the legislative process, and it's 3%, so, but we have to adopt it by local acceptance. And if we do so, then any establishment that comes into Dudley, then 3% of their sales will generate revenue to the town. Not a lot of money and not a big moneymaker. But that's.
Well,
our
this
share.
was already, we already voted the 2% anyway, right?
We did, but that's our share.
I don't think the marijuana smokers would mind, they wouldn't even know this.
Nope.
Go to 5%.
Right, right.
Give them some Cheetos, they're all set.
We would defer that? We would, for finance, are we at the meeting?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Defer?
the potential gain is.
We have no
I'm-
idea
I'm
what it
gonna
would do.
say,
Right.
I've looked at it, it's about $50,000 per establishment in tax revenue. So if there's an establishment, we can expect that we'll receive about $50,000 in revenue, which isn't bad. It's not enough to balance the budget, but $50,000 is better than nothing.
Would get us some gear for the fire department.
It would. So in that regard, I would hope that we would support it.
All right, Article 27, some revolving funds here.
This is just articles that are perfunctory, so this is in the past. We've just simply voted these, and the state requires us to put it in this format, which we've done. So these are all our revolving funds, bundled into one account, one article, with what the spending requirements are and what the money can be used for.
So this is all of them are listed here.
There's all of them. I don't think we've missed any.
Is there any chance we can start to
trim them back.
trim back some of these why do we gotta have a revolving account for everything? Amazing.
People don't want to see the money coming back into the general fund.
Yeah, I guess,
That's what it says, that's
It's
what it says
amazing,
to
isn't
me, but,
Can you imagine paying your bills at home like this,
my
you know?
but,
The cable
some
account,
some
you know?
departments are not revenue generating, such as the town accountant's office, but is absolutely vital to the operation, so they shouldn't be penalized because they don't generate revenue. You know what I'm saying?
Makes sense.
I've never been a big fan of the people, because if you look at that, then the building department brings in thousands of dollars in building permit fees, and we should have a building department with 10 people in it. That's not right either.
And you're gonna put the petition article again, Article 28?
Yeah,
on
so
it.
that, we'll ask that it be deferred.
They still get the, that match to
They do.
half of it?
They do.
All right.
So
So,
got more in the fall than
yeah.
they had anticipated, which was nice, right?
They got the 10 from us,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
They get the
and we'll
10 from-
continue to put that money out there so they get it every year.
Yeah, the match. All right, so we're gonna go back to Article 6, the town budget.
Yep.
And then all the other stuff
So
on
there
the
should be a separate budget sheet which has all the departments broken down. It looks, it's just says, yeah, there's one that says funding sources, which is the first one that I'm gonna talk about. Funding sources,
Okay, funding sources, all right, I got it. All right,
all right, so we have a balanced budget, and that's reflected in the fact that at the end, the bottom number, shows that there's a difference in 0. So our revenues total our expenses at $20,728,071. And this is a real quick summary that Debbie has put together, which is good, that shows what our different revenue sources are. In summary for the public, our total operating revenues are up $481,695. Our fixed costs are applied against that, and they total $167,000. So we deduct that from the $481,695, and that left us $314,695 for everything else, except for the schools, because the schools got the override, and that's what that money is going for. So for all of our municipal departments and municipal budgets, we have $315,000 to spread amongst everyone, which is a real small amount of money. The total increase in departmental spending that was submitted to me was $683,904, and you'll see that in the upper right-hand number on the sheet that you have in front of you. So we needed to bring that spending down, the sheet right here,
yeah,
right here.
Oh, okay, sorry,
Right
I'm on
here.
the wrong sheet here.
Right
I
here.
think, yeah.
Look at this sheet that, I'm sorry. That's a sheet that I have that you don't have in the packet.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
me, my apologies.
Thought I needed glasses for a minute.
No, but so, so what we will be doing for the budget is, the revenues are shown here and are shown under general government budget revenue sources. And that's new growth, that's, debt exclusions, increased state aid, free cash. There's no overlay surplus nor stabilization that's shown here as part of the budget. And then local receipts. And then obviously taxation comprises the largest portion of that. That's our revenues, conservative revenue practices that we've had in the past. Any questions about revenues? How we get to where we get to on the numbers?
Does the taxation, that doesn't include the, yeah, it does, includes the override, right?
Yeah, it would include the override.
Okay. And new growth, is that isn't that solar farm that came on, or is that something else, the new growth?
Yeah, so those, the new growth is not the solar farm. It's new construction that's coming onto the town's tax rolls. So the solar farm money is separate because that's payment in lieu of tax money. And that trickles in, but that doesn't necessarily translate into new growth.
Okay.
So, in terms of funding sources, we're not using any money from the stabilization fund to balance the budget. Last year, we did use some money to balance the budget, and it really depleted our stabilization fund down to the point where we really have very little money available to use for spending. We are utilizing $214,901 in free cash. That's money that we reserved and held from the fall town meeting, knowing that we would be facing a difficult budget year. And so we're utilizing that in its entirety to go toward the budget. And you can see the other amounts that are here are pretty much self-explanatory. And then we have water and sewer department revenues that enter into the equation. You'll note that we show $1,544,333 for the override, so we've shown that separately. And again, those monies are earmarked 100% for the schools, and they don't really address any of the revenue shortfalls that we have on the town side. But the good news is, we're balanced, and we're balanced without using a stabilization fund. We had to make cuts to get there. I think people expect that's the case, but it is what it is at this stage.
If I could, just a quick question. How much do we have left in stabilization after the fall budget cycle? 298,000.
So we'll look at funding that again in the fall. Debbie, do you have anything to add on the revenue side?
The local receipts actually increased quite a bit. We have about 50,000, and that helped a little bit. Some of that was the solar farm and our building, some of the rent went up quite a bit this year. That's about it, everything stayed relatively the same.
So then you have the summary of departmental spending. That's Appendix A. And it shows you what departments have requested and what the recommended level of spending is. And again, the town administrator recommended, which is the right-hand column, brings us to a balanced budget. Brings us to where we want to be for the purposes of going into town meeting. So there are a couple things that we assume. We assume that our labor costs are gonna go up by 2%. So we have included that in our budget. It remains to be seen in cases where we have contracts to open for negotiation, whether that's the number that ultimately gets agreed upon, but we still want to set aside money in the budget process for doing that. And then we try to address what we consider to be critical needs in our budget. We cannot possibly fund everything that comes in and is requested of us. And what we promise to do is we'll take another look at it in the fall when additional revenues become available. We've done that in the past, and we'll probably do it again this fall. That's the summary of all the budgets. And then you have the detail sheet, which you're free to go through, which shows you all of the increases that are shown here and some of the notes that have been put in to help you understand where there were increases, what they were comprised of. So what do we get out of it? We get out of it that our departments are funded fully. We're not adding any additional services. We're not hiring any new personnel, but we're not laying off any personnel either. We have a library that continues to be certified and accredited and meets the minimum funding requirements under state law. And we have a budget that's balanced with what I think is a pretty conservative revenue scenario.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead. I'm just kinda looking at it.
Just a quick question on that. Does that include merit-based raise revenue
yeah.
for Town employees?
Yeah, so we just completed our merit reviews, and the maximum merit increases that were granted for this year are 2%. So we have a merit pool. The merit pool has about a little bit over $13,000 in it. And the average increase this year was 1%. So in the past, we've been pretty generous in terms of granting 2% increases for merit. This year, because of our revenue situation, we granted 1% merit. And only in a few cases where people were recognized for outstanding achievement would they get more than 1%.
That's happened.
So we'll be back, I think the merit pool has worked out pretty well. We'll be back looking to fund it again in the fall. Merit increases always run from January 1st to December 31st. So any merit increases that we grant hit us for half a year cost this year and half in the next fiscal year.
Understood.
Any questions on any of these line items? I got a couple, but do you have any?
No, I didn't have anything that jumped out at me.
Greg, town clerk,
Sure.
that jumped up a little bit.
So she has elections, and as goes her election cost, generally that reflects changes in her budget.
Yeah.
So, 3 elections this coming year. So the cost of the elections would have gone from $3,744 in this year to $14,196 in fiscal 19, and that's the lion's share of the cost increase.
We got 3, we got?
3 elections.
Which ones? Look at the midterms.
The primary?
Oh, the primary, yeah. We got primaries.
There's a November election too.
Yeah.
So primaries, November election, and town election in spring.
Wow. Okay. What else are we gonna get? Let's see,
Highway department seemed to jump.
Yeah.
quite a bit, but-
Highway?
Yeah.
Let's see, I can tell you exactly where that is.
Oh, no, actually, I'm sorry, it didn't jump. The requested amount jumped around 90,000, but the recommended amount stayed around the same as
Right.
last year, so.
Right. I mean, the only real budget, the significant jump is in veterans and the veterans benefits, and, that's we have an obligation. The only way I can describe it is we have an obligation to the people that have served, and those individuals who are eligible for veterans benefits will receive veterans benefits. Now, we did level fund veterans benefits for the purposes of this budget, but we will need to address that in the fall. The good news is that it's 75% reimbursable by the Commonwealth. So for every dollar that we pay in veterans benefits, the state generously reimburses us 75 cents. I think it's good for the benefit, it's good for the veterans, and ultimately the town, that cost increasing more than 2.5 doesn't really hurt the town.
I noticed the municipal expenses went down.
Yeah,
Educational outside district. Oh, so we lost a student?
yep,
Is that in the chapter 74, the 17,000, that's for that student too?
yeah, so as we lose students, we adjust these costs. They come and they go.
Do you know of any new students coming on? Or
No,
new student
I'm not aware of any new students that are coming on. One thing we do have in here is legal. So we budget $16,500 for legal costs. We're in the process of we're appointing a new town council, so in municipal costs, it says legal.
So you don't have anything recommended for 19 in there, right?
Yeah, so we have legal, so we have, under municipal expenses,
Oh, okay.
we budget 16,000 570. The reason I bring it up is we're hiring a new town attorney, so those costs may go up, and I'm just letting you know that in the fall, we may need more money. The amount that Dudley budgets for legal services exceptionally small. Other towns will budget upwards of $100,000. We make $261,000. So there's some risk in that, and the veterans' budget is something we need to take a look at again.
So the streetlights, that went down quite a bit. What happened there?
We budget cost for labor, for repairs. So if we're not gonna be repairing streetlights anymore, we don't need to include the amount in the budget. So keep in mind that everyone calls looking for service.
Yeah.
They call my office. And, because we're in charge of streetlight repairs, but we will not be doing repairs anymore.
A welcome day.
It'll be a
Yeah. I can't
Michelle's faced
imagine.
with that.
I can't imagine.
They're old lights,
Yeah.
that's all I can say. Debbie, do you have anything else to bring up on the budget that I didn't talk about? I can see you.
Good job.
Thanks, Debbie. Debbie does the lion's share on the budget. She's quiet over there. She deserves a real thumbs up for what she does on the budget every year.
Group insurance for treasurer collector, that went up quite a bit, huh? 47,172.
That's quite a jump.
What's the county retirement?
We'll do one at a time.
Okay.
County retirement is the actuarial valuation. Every other year, they do the valuation based on actual population. So they've done the valuation for me, and for Greg Baluconis, and Deb Thibodeau, and for Michelle Jervis. And they've gone through, and we have a couple of things that we need to pay for. We need to pay for those who are retired. There's a valuation that says retiree number one is this age with this demographic, and the funding schedule goes out to 2035. That is, of course, unless the mortality line intersects, in which case they don't. But there's those who are already retired. There are those who are already retired and took a 2002, 2003 early retirement incentive. They separate that dollar amount out. We need to pay for everybody who left in 2002, and they give that a separate calculation for that. The final portion of it is what they call a normal cost. That's got to be about 2 to 3% of last year's salary. So if you compare it against the private sector, where you're paying your Medicare, Town of Dudley pays Medicare, so it's a wash. We withhold 6.2%, and then we put in 6.2% for Social Security. So at the end of the day, the Town of Dudley is paying 3% or less for a direct retirement benefit in anticipation of my retirement or wherever I'm going to be in 2035, as opposed to 6.2, which goes to Social Security. That is the assessment given to us to pay for July 1st. We need to pay that. There's two options to pay it. All on July 1st, in which case we get the actuarial rate of return for an early payment, which is 7.75%, used to be 8, because they split the payment in half. Half on July 1st, half on January 1st. If we pay both halves first, we get that discount on the second half. It's the only place I can earn anywhere close to that money. It is like the school's assessment, other than they don't break it down. We need to pay it. They should do the OPEB the same way. This is what you need to pay, you should put it off to the state. So they really have tightened up their way of assessing, because it's tight to the dollar. It's really, they've got to have a heck of an actuarial bill, but everybody's still there, so you're just updating the existing tables. We need to pay that. We have it to the point where they have the population of the water and sewer people. So there's a direct enterprise breakout, literally by individual every year. So that's a pretty true number of what we need to pay. Questions on that? That number comes out in first, second week of January. But they're always chasing their tail because it's based on a valuation that's always a year or two old. As far as the group insurance, it went up on average, depending on the plan, 4.1, 4.7%. That's well below medical trend. Medical trend's got to be coming close to 8, 9, 10%. And considering we have not gone to a high deductible plan, or we haven't changed any of our co-payments, still pretty good. Now, there's an estimator in there because we don't know what the MedX renewal is going to be. Your regular employees and those under the age of 65 are on the HMO plans. That's a July 1st renewal. We have open enrollment right now. Anybody who is Medicare eligible, over the age of 65 and not currently working full-time, that renewal is January 1st. So we threw a horseshoe and sort of estimated what that was going to be. You're imagining it's going to be a similar amount. And that is, of course, nobody changes the Affordable Care Act or any of the components of it, because A, B, and D are the three portions of Medicare. A is free, B there's a charge for, D is the important one in that it controls the largest cost driver, which is prescription drug benefits. The program we have now, where the government pays, they create the formulary and they pay it. So there's the drug component, there's a small prescription benefit copay that you pay, but as far as on the Blue Cross end, the federal government's kicking in a lot of money. I want to say in certain cases up to 20% of the cost driver is going to be prescription benefits. So that is a good thing. As much as we're going to be accepting a section of Mass General Law, one of the housekeeping things that we did, everybody's on a Medicare plan. If you're Medicare eligible in the town of Dudley, you need to keep there. So we get that federal benefit. So it is a good thing. It's a good idea to be in the trust. We did well on our small purchase group, but that trust is bigger, better buying power, and you stay with it.
Thank you, Rich.
If you want to look to the future, when people retire and they receive their retirement, they don't disappear, they don't fly away. We keep them on the insurance. So the person that retires in 2019, we're gonna add one to the insurance because there's going to be a replacement person. Now there's a reasonable chance that whoever replaces, and fill in the blank, whoever's going to retire in the next 12 months, somebody is going to take the insurance. I think we put forth a pretty good plan. So odds are, unless it's a plan sponsored by a spouse's employer, well, they're not paying much of anything. You know, they're going with us.
And that would be spouse insurance too, with that.
Right. I mean, we at least where we are now, we didn't have this until we went with the trust. We have an individual plan, we have a family plan, but we also have a employee plus one. So you're saving a little bit on those that it applies to, whether it be an empty nester or single parent, something like that.
Any questions for Rich?
No, not on anything.
Dan, anything?
No, I think you guys do a great job, really.
Any other questions on the budget?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you, Greg, on the budget.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Will you be coming to the meeting on Monday or no?
Yes.
Because if you can't make it, then you should consider voting it tonight, because we'll need your recommendation for town
Is
meeting.
there anybody cannot make the meeting on Monday night?
What time would it be, 6:30?
6:30.
Yeah, no, that should be fine.
Fine, can you
Is
make
it
the
6:30 Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll give us some time to digest all of this
Sure.
and take a
Yeah.
look at it, and if we have any other questions, but I don't see any real problems.
It's always easier when it's balanced.
Yeah,
Yes.
makes it really simple.
It does.
I have one comment on the
Sure.
warrant. Just going back to Article 8 in regard to the 19,000 requested by the fire department, I really urge us to, if at all possible, find that when it's health and safety. I just believe it's one of the things we should put in the forefront. I'd hate to see our guys out there under unnecessary risk over a $20,000 allotment, so. But I know there's only so much we can do, but that's my thought.
Okay,
Two last things.
sure. Do we get,
Yeah, so the first is a request for a transfer from the
Yep.
reserve fund
Yep.
for $15,000. And the money would be targeted to the Veterans Benefit account that we've talked about before. So the account is in the negative status right now, and this will help us true up that budget as we approach the end of the fiscal year.
And
There's
the-
a positive recommendation on that.
Sorry, those funds are coming from
Reserve fund.
reserve.
So that is totally under your control.
Yep. So I would make a motion that we transfer from the reserve fund the amount of $15,000 to fund the Veterans Benefits account.
I second it.
all right, any discussion on it? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Michelle, where do I sign? Oh, you actually highlighted where I should sign.
Do we have to sign anything on that?
You do.
I think you do, yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, there's another request, which is year-end transfers for fiscal 2018. It looks like this.
Everything correct?
So it,
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
so as part of the reconciliation that takes place as we get to year-end, we have various accounts that are running in the negative. And we then go and we look at other departments which are running at a surplus, and we attempt to fund those negative balances. So the accounts that are running in the negative balances, or proposed to be negative balances, would be the Veterans Benefits. We estimate that the total annual negative, if we do nothing, would be $67,911.50, and that would be less than $15,000 you just voted. And then we have snow and ice, which mercifully the winter appears to be over, which is a negative $58,752.50. We also wish to fund our beach operation for $6,265. And this will avoid us having an article before town meeting. And I think everyone's happy with the way we run the beach, and we run it really on small dollars. I will chime in that it's for Dudley residents, and there is no fee that is charged to Dudley residents. So hopefully you'll see it in your ways to approve these transfers. The total amount of the transfers for snow and ice, the beach operation, and the veterans benefits total $132,929. And again, they're broken down by $52,911.50 for veterans benefits, $6,265 for the beach operations, and $58,752.50 for snow and ice. And I so recommend.
Greg, what's the difference between the veterans benefits of the 15 and then the 52? I don't-
Just the source of funds. Just the source
So
of
the
funds.
52 is,
Just the total estimated deficit in that account is $67,911.50. And so, less the 15,000 that you just voted gives us a balance of 52,911.
okay.
We need to make a motion or vote on this tonight.
So you need to vote on it, and then the second step is it goes to the selectmen, who also have to vote.
Do we have to vote each number here, or
Nope.
can we vote on 132?
Just vote on the 132,929.
So I would make a motion that we approve the transfers, is that correct?
Correct.
Of, in a total amount of $132,929 to fund the snow and ice deficit, beach operations, and additional veterans benefit.
And I second it.
Excuse me, can I just say something? You really only need to vote the 117,920, because you already voted the 15,000.
Oh, so that's in the 132,929?
117,929. 15,000 was already voted when they voted that.
So that 132 cut
Included that.
included
Oh, I see it,
the 50?
Debbie.
Does.
Oh,
see it.
There's a
okay.
summary down the
I see it.
bottom.
All right.
Thank you, Deb.
And that motion?
Yep. So I would amend the motion to transfer the total amount of $117,929 to fund the snow and ice deficit, beach operations, and veterans benefits.
And I second the motion.
All right, any discussion on the amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so do I need to make another motion to accept that?
Nope, you have to sign it. And the second step is it needs to go to the selectmen on Monday night for their approval. Two-step process. With limited ability to move money around between accounts, that's the way it has to come to you.
Does it, we all have to sign this one?
It does, yeah, please.
Oh, sorry, I can't.
No, no
fill up
problem.
the space. What about the other one? I did not. We had to sign the other one, all of us?
No, just you.
All right.
Miscellaneous.
Any miscellaneous?
Just one question, just for our update, is the solar revenue, have we seen revenue from that? I know it doesn't really affect or benefit us in regard to budget shortfalls, but.
$67,000 for revenue funds for 2018 that we've gotten so far.
Wow.
That's going right to the general revenue, but
Great.
2019, it'll roll over into the tax revenue.
And we also, as these applicants come in and apply for permits, there's also an increase in building permit fees because we charge a separate fee for commercial solar generation.
I like it.
Anything on the dump?
Yeah.
The old dump?
Yeah, it's going forward. We have to sign a lease. So we did go out to bid on that. We identified the top bidder. We have to negotiate a lease with that top bidder for 20 years. The total gain to the town is about
Are
$162,000.
they gonna put you gonna put an article in for that?
No, we already got it. So town meeting has already approved it. And so it's just strictly a lease. We want to just lease the property, get revenue in as a lease.
Okay.
Sure, you don't want to sell them the dump?
Yes.
It's not a bad idea.
All right. Anything else we need to discuss? Right.
One quick thing, I just wanted to let the committee know that we, as the fire department, is still out there actively pursuing grants. And we have two out there right now, one for $288,000 to replace air packs that were purchased in 1995. We're waiting to hear on that. We did make it past the electronic grading portion, so we've moved on to the second stage, which is a good sign. And we recently one of my members submitted a grant in the amount of $19,995 to replace 3,000 feet of supply line, water supply line for the fire apparatus, and that's in excess of 25 years old. So we are actively pursuing grants. I understand money's
Hope we get
tight,
'em.
but I just wanted to let the committee know.
Thank you, Chief.
Great work.
Awesome. When's the town meeting?
May 21st,
Which is, what day is that?
Monday. Mark it down.
Hope you're gonna be there, right?
Yeah.
Get somebody to make the motions.
Oh, no, you
No,
were
no,
doing
no,
that this
no,
time,
no,
I thought we agreed.
Yeah, that's something.
Mondays are a little easier, we close at 5, so.
I guess that's it. So we have a meeting Monday night, joint meeting, so let you digest some of this stuff, and if we have any questions, then we'll take some votes.
Just give me a holler if you have any questions.
Yeah,
good.
definitely. All right, so you have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, let's go watch the Bruins.
Yes.